Today, we will hear about the likes of Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and of course the Iron Man Elon Musk. But very little is often said about wealthy people who made history in the past. I bet you don't know much about Andrew Carnegie and how this serial entrepreneur rose from poverty to over $350 billion. In today's video, we will be looking at the life of Andrew Carnegie and drawing some vital entrepreneurial lessons from him. Let's get it on. Fond for saying that the man who dies rich dies disgraced, Carnegie's life is one of the greatest rags to riches stories out there. Just to put some perspective on how much he was worth, Andrew Carnegie sold his steel company, Carnegie Steel, to J.P. Morgan for $480 million in 1901. His personal peak wealth was around $390 million. That's around $350 billion by today's standard. Now, here's a fun fact. The top 3 richest people in the world as of August 2020 were Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and Bernard Arnault and family, and they had a combined wealth of around $340 billion. Yep, that's right, Andrew Carnegie was richer than all the wealthy people you currently know. Like most of us, Carnegie wasn't always wealthy, or even an American, but he rose against all odds to prove that you can become whatever you want to be if you set your mind to it. Born in 1835, Carnegie was the son of a jobbing weaver from Dunfermline, who plunged into poverty when the business of hand looms was crushed by the steam-powered ones. His mother resorted to selling groceries and mending shoes just to take care of the family. Talk about making lemonades from the limes that life throws at you. Idolizing his mother and what poverty meant, Carnegie can be quoted saying, "I began to learn what poverty meant. It was burnt into my heart that my father had to beg for work, and then came the resolve that I would cure that when I got to be a man." In 1848, and at the age of 13, out of desperation, his family borrowed the fare for an Atlantic voyage and emigrated to Pittsburgh, a city often described as stinking, stifling, and soot-cloaked back then. It was consumed by the demand for iron. Carnegie's first job as an adolescent was as a bobbin boy in a cotton mill. He worked long hours and earned $1.20 weekly. The next year, Carnegie got a job as a messenger in a telegraph office where he taught himself how to use the equipment. The skills and contacts he cultivated at the telegraph office helped him land a job with the Pennsylvania Railroad Company, a job that would help shape his entire future. The young chap made himself indispensable and started earning real money by his standards, $35 a month. While the likes of Buffett knew they were going to be rich, it was naked ambition for Carnegie. Working at the railroad company helped him learn about the industry and how to identify smart investments. Even though he didn't have the money to make those investments, he was still observant. A quick pause from the story of Andrew Carnegie. As an entrepreneur or employee, you must be ready to grab opportunities. Be intentional about your growth. Learn when others are out partying and wasting time. One thing I have discovered in life is that opportunities will always come, but most people are either too busy to recognize them or not ready to jump on them. Still on the job, Carnegie's boss, Thomas A. Scott, told him about the intention of Adams Express Company to sell 10 shares. Carnegie was able to raise the $500 he needed when his mother mortgages their house. Not long after, another opportunity to invest in sleeping train cars came up, and Carnegie secured a bank loan to invest in the Woodruff Sleeping Car Company. In about 2 years, his gamble paid off, and the young investor was able to see returns of $5,000 annually. During the Civil War, Pittsburgh became a commercial hub for the production of gunboats, cannons, and other war machinery. By then, Carnegie had made enough money to invest in an oil well, which yielded more than $1 million in cash dividends. He also worked to create a steel rolling mill. By the end of the war, Carnegie channeled his efforts to ironworks and used his connections and the Pennsylvania Railroad Company management to secure contracts and build tracks across the state. Already wealthy, Carnegie began to develop the principles of giving. At 33, he wrote a letter to himself, urging himself to live a modest and charitable life. Here's what he told himself. 33 and an income of $5,000 per annum. By this 2 years, I can so arrange all my business as to secure at least $5,000 per annum. Beyond this, never earn. Make no effort to increase fortune but spend the surplus each year for benevolent purposes. Cast aside business forever except for others. Settle in Oxford and get a thorough education. Make the acquaintances of literary men. This will take 3 years active work. Pay special attention to speaking in public. Settle then in London and purchase a controlling interest in some newspaper or live review and give the general management of it attention, taking a part in public matters, especially those connected with education and improvement of the poorer classes. Man must have an idol. The amassing of wealth is one of the worst species of idolatry. No idol more debasing than the worship of money. Whatever I engage in, I must push inordinately, therefore should I be careful to choose that life which will be the most elevating in its character. To continue much longer overwhelmed by business cares and with most of my thoughts wholly upon the way to make more money in the shortest time must degrade me beyond hope of permanent recovery. I will resign business at 35, but during the ensuing 2 years, I wish to spend the afternoons in secure instruction and in reading systematically. No one knows if it was a desire to do more or earn more, but Carnegie did not retire by the age of 35, as he had earlier written to himself. Instead, he continued to grow his influence in the steel industry over the next 30 years. His first steel plant was opened in 1875. In 1883, he bought a rival steel company, the Homestead Steel Works, and formed the Carnegie Steel Company in 1892. Carnegie was excited about technology, and this helped him to build the largest steel empire in American history. He adopted technological advances, including the Bessemer process and vertical integration. When he eventually sold his company to J.P. Morgan, it was the biggest deal in American history. And guess what? Carnegie's share was worth more than $225 million. He had to build a vault just to protect his first mortgage gold bonds from J.P. Morgan. This is just a fraction of the actual life of Andrew Carnegie. However, there are a lot of lessons to learn from this entrepreneur. Let's have a look at 2 lessons that I consider to be the most important about his life. Number 1. Always be on the lookout for opportunities. As simple as it sounds, many people are so mechanical in their approach towards life. Instead of spotting opportunities, they spot problems and make excuses. Carnegie was on the lookout for opportunities, and when they arise, he was ready to grab them. Carnegie took his first job at age 13, working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and earning $1.2 a week as a bobbin boy. Today, the average number of hours spent at the workplace is 8 hours a day for 5 days a week as an employee. What this means is that you have some time to work on yourself, learn a skill, or take a course. While most of us will settle for a job that could pay the bills or generate sufficient income, Carnegie wasn't. The next year, he got a more demanding job and didn't chicken out. In his next job, he tended to a boiler in a cellar, running a small steam engine. In his autobiography, Carnegie noted that the job was highly stressful since he had to create enough steam for the workers above. However, he chose not to tell his parents about his anxieties and decided to play the man and bear his burdens. He said, "My hopes were high, and I looked every day for some change to take place. What it was to be I knew not, but that it would come I felt certain if I kept on. One day the chance came." Speaking on his interview to work as a messenger boy in a telegraph office, Carnegie said, "It is a great mistake not to seize the opportunity. The position was offered to me, something might occur, some other boy might be sent for. Having got myself in, I proposed to stay there if I could. And that is how in 1850 I got my first real start in life. There was scarcely a minute in which I could not learn something or find out how much there was to learn and how little I knew. I felt that my foot was upon the ladder and that I was bound to climb." In summary, learn to seize opportunities, be hungry for them, seek them out and grab them. Number 2, invest in yourself and in processes. There's no need to take out profits if your business is just starting out. If you have enough to take out of your daily needs and expenditure, the wise thing to do is to reinvest your profits back into your business. Hold that Lambo dream a little longer. One of the reasons why Carnegie and his company was insanely profitable was because he constantly invested in himself and in new technologies. He kept more money in his business to invest in new technology, and this drove down the cost of production. One of his lesser-known business strategies was consistently increasing his ownership percentages in various businesses by buying out his partners. To a large extent, Carnegie profited from his business expenses by controlling his supply chain. He was smart enough to profit from every step in the manufacturing process. While most companies focused on one step, Carnegie was involved in multiple steps. Here's how. His bridge company purchased ore from his ore company and also purchased steel from his steel company. He had a coke company that supplied his steel company with coke. To apply this to your life or business, look at where your money is going and try to profit from your expenses. For example, if most of your expenses go into printing, why not own a printing company? Do you spend a significant sum on rent? Then owning the building shouldn't be a bad idea. Take some time out to study where your money flows toward and try to create a closed system. To be really wealthy, you must create secondary businesses. Disney, for example, specializes in serving families, and all their secondary businesses are all targeted towards families. In conclusion, anything is possible if you believe and put in the required work. No one said it's going to be easy, but if you hit hard and long enough, you'll definitely make an impact.